Welcome once again to another edition of Good Books Radio. I'm your host this week, Dr. John Cook, and with me today is a returning guest, Dr. Susan Shumsky. We talked with her about the power of auras in the past. Dr. Shumsky has dedicated her life to helping people take command of their lives in highly effective, powerful, and positive ways. She's an award-winning author of 11 books, including The Power of Chakras. Excuse me, I almost mispronounced that. The Power of Auras and Ascension. For 22 years, her mentor was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, guru of the Beatles and of Deepak Chopra. She served on the Maharishi's personal staff for 7 years, a pioneer in human potential field, and a highly respected spiritual teacher for nearly 50 years. She is the founder of Divine Revelation, a unique field-proven technology for contacting the divine presence, hearing and testing the inner voice, and receiving clear guidance. Her website is www.drsusan.org. Dr. Shumsky, welcome to the program.
I'm thrilled to be here with you today, John.
This book is like your other book that I read, The Power of Auras, is deeply insightful and multidisciplinary. It's multi-theological. It's multilingual. You have really demonstrated the depth of your knowledge and understanding, and I want people to appreciate that and get something out of this, even though in 30 minutes we can't do justice to this book. But it is influenced by the Abrahamic religions, by the mystic Judaism of the Kabbalah. I see references to Taoism, to Hindu, to Buddhism, to Sufism. So it's a very eclectic book. Is that a fair statement?
I would say so, and it's a very detailed book, too, and backed up by a lot of scientific research as well.
Mm-hmm. I would like to try to start laying some groundwork with some definitional things, and I'd like to start by having you explain what the prana is, and then the subtle body, before we talk about the third eye itself.
Well, that really is a great way to start, because the prana is the basis of everything. Prana is a word in Sanskrit that means life force energy. In China, they call it chi, and in Japan, they call it ki. Prana is what they call it in India. So prana flows through a subtle body. Well, okay, so you have this gross physical body, but you also have a subtle body. And the subtle body has many layers to it. One of the layers of the subtle body, which, by the way, is invisible to physical eyes, your subtle body.
Yeah, for a reference point of people that don't know, it might be called an aura or an energy field in our culture. So,
correct.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the layers of that aura or energy field is called the energy body, or the pranamaya kosha. They call it that in Sanskrit. So the energy body is the body through which prana flows. And prana flows in specific pathways or conduits. In China, they call those meridian. And in India, they call them nadi, N-A-D-I, nadi. So when many nadis intersect with each other and form a plexus, that plexus is called a chakra. So chakra, which means an energy center, actually literally it means a wheel because it has a hub and because it radiates pranic energy. So the chakra, there's 7 major chakra in your subtle body known as the pranamaya kosha. And one of those major chakra is called the Ajna chakra, A-J-N-A chakra. You would translate that as command center. And it is right in the center of your brain, and that's also known as your third eye. Mm-hmm. So that command center is very important, obviously, or it wouldn't be called the command center. It's commanding the other chakras, and it is the center of higher wisdom, higher knowledge, intuition, illumination, and it is situated in the pineal gland, and it is regulating and running the endocrine system, the entire endocrine system, from that vantage point in the brain, in the center of the brain, where the pineal gland is located, and also the hypothalamus, thalamus, and the pituitary. These important glands in the brain, that's where the third eye is located. It not only is located specifically in the pineal gland, but it also extends to the forehead area and the back of the head. In fact, pretty much the entire brain area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a couple of more conceptual things before we talk. I'd like to talk more about the pineal gland in particular, but and also how to access or awaken your third eye. But a couple more definitions seem pertinent to me. One is Kundalini.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, Kundalini is a very important word. Okay, so Kundal means curled up energy. That's a Sanskrit word again, Kundalini. A Kundalini is a specific kind of pranic energy. In other words, it is prana as well, but it's a specific form of prana, which in everyday average people is sitting at the base of your spine in the base chakra, what we call the base chakra, which is Muladhara chakra, and it's just sitting there in that base chakra, and it's said in the ancient scriptures of India that it's coiled 3.5 times with head down, which means it's asleep. So this energy is asleep in average individuals. Actually, there may be a lot more people where it's awake than you might realize, because anyone who has any kind of higher perception, higher wisdom, higher knowledge, anyone who's really interested in learning higher knowledge and who's interested in the arts, interested in literature, interested in just any intellectual pursuit, has Kundalini opened to some degree. So when I mean Kundalini open, I mean that it has risen to some degree, because usually it's coiled up at the base of the spine, but then when it gets stimulated, when it gets arisen, it rises up through the median of the spine, right through the spinal canal is where it's located, and it rises up through a specific nadi. Remember, we talked about the conduits of subtle energy called nadi.
mm-hmm.
So there's a specific nadi called Sushumna nadi, and it rises up through Sushumna nadi, rises from the base of the spine, and eventually goes all the way above the top of your head. So Kundalini is very important when it comes to awakening your chakras and awakening your higher perceptions, such as clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It also is very important for attaining higher consciousness and illumination. So people who have Kundalini risen, who the Kundalini is awake and has risen all the way up through the spine and so forth, they are highly awake and enlightened individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an extremely important concept, Kundalini.
Okay, let's talk about the lore of the third eye, because it's not just something that's on the back of the $1 bill, as you say, but it's widely depicted in temple sculptures, paintings, wall murals, all over the world. There's been an interest in this through the centuries, through the millennia.
Well, that's very true. The third eye has been referred to since antiquity. It's been referred to by Plato and the Greeks, and it's been referred to in Indonesia, Babylonia, Sumeria, Egypt, Greece, Rome, Freemasonry, Theosophy, Gnosticism, Christianity. The Masonic are well aware of it. I mean, it is also the symbol of it is on the back of the United States $1 bill. It's also in the Great Seal of the United States, mm-hmm. and it's all over, symbolism all over the Masonic tracing boards and so on. It's the Eye of Horus to the ancient Egyptians. It's associated with the Philosopher's Stone, of the alchemists in Europe and also in the Far East. So there's a lot of lore associated with the third eye.
Mm-hmm. A couple of interesting ones that I found. One, the Hindu deities are portrayed with the dot of a red powder, and married women traditionally wear that. And then
that's true.
The pharaohs had a headdress and a snake coming out of what would be the third eye in the forehead, which symbolizes the Kundalini, right?
Yeah, I think that the snake is representing Kundalini. It's also called the serpent power, as a matter of fact, Kundalini.
Mm-hmm.
And the pharaohs are depicted with this snaky thing. It's called the Uraeus.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also symbolizes Sekhmet, the goddess Sekhmet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting.
The pineal gland, which seems to be part of what resolves these senses that we take in, looks like a pine cone. And another way that we see this represented is there are pine cones and beehive-shaped items on all kinds of religious institutions, buildings.
That's very true. The reason why it's called a pineal gland is because it looks like a tiny pine cone, a beehive or a cornstalk, and the Greeks named it as a pineal gland, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And in Latin, that's the name of this stone pine, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a resemblance to. Some people think pine cones. Some people think it's the nuts found in the pine cones.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, the symbol of the pine cone represents the highest spiritual illumination, and it's in many cultures. The beehive is a common Masonic symbol. The cornstalk is widely portrayed in indigenous tribes in America,
mm-hmm.
North and South America. The largest religious monument in the world, which is called Angkor Wat, is found in Cambodia. It has colossal domes that are pine cone shaped, and you'll see pine cones or beehive shapes adorning the head of Lord Buddha. You will see, obviously, the third eye also depicted in the sculptures of Hindu and Buddhist deities.
Mm-hmm.
The world's largest pine cone statue is found in the Vatican, though, in the court of the pine cone, which is flanked by two peacocks, and it represents resurrection and immortality. And the Pope has a staff with a pine cone atop the staff, and it's also depicted, this pine cone shape is in the coat of arms of the Holy See.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the ancient Greeks, they wielded a staff known as a thyrsus. Actually, it wasn't the ancient Greeks. It was the gods of the ancient Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
The fertility god Dionysus, also known as Bacchus in Rome, and the followers known as the satyrs or satyrs and the Maenads. And this thyrsus is made of a stalk of giant fennel plant. It has ivy and vine branches twined around it, and it's decorated with a ribbon, and it's topped with a pine cone.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just some of the pine, more well-known pine cone shapes that are depicted throughout ancient art and artifacts.
You posed the question as the title of Chapter 1, what is the third eye anyway? And you explain how the Greeks see it as the eye of wisdom, that it's the all-seeing eye of God for some, the eye of Horus for others. And so it's pretty much, and Descartes claimed that it's the principal seat of the soul. What would be a nice summary of just how powerful an aspect of existence the third eye is?
Well, the third eye is extremely important to our spiritual awakening and evolution because it is the center of illumination. It is the place in our subtle body where we experience higher awareness, higher consciousness, wisdom that is intuitive wisdom. And so it really is the place where we are experiencing our true nature of being, where we're experiencing who we really are and jumping out of this three-dimensional reality into higher states of consciousness, into the ultimate human experience. That is located right there in that Agya chakra, or third eye area.
Now, the pineal gland is also responsible for regulating a variety of functions. You mentioned the endocrine system, but let's talk a little bit about DMT, dimethyltryptamine, right?
Right. So dimethyltryptamine is basically an illegal psychedelic drug. When I was a hippie in the 60s, people were taking DMT to have a quick psychedelic trip that was very intense, in fact, acting, and people would report extraordinary experiences with DMT. Well, recently, the jungle of the Amazon in South America has become a very popular tourist attraction and destination for those who seek to experience DMT in the form of a local shamanic plant medicine called ayahuasca. And that is sacred to the indigenous South American culture. Specifically, the Aguaruna Indians of the Amazon have used ayahuasca in ritual ceremonies since 500 BC. And the concoction known as ayahuasca is made of leaves and stems of various psychedelic plants. And the shamanic tribes of the Amazon claim that this drug awakens understanding of the self and kind of a communion with a higher power. And so this kind of chemical known as DMT has been associated for a very long time with higher states of consciousness, experiences, out-of-body experiences, seeing things hidden from view, seeing multi-dimensions, seeing beings that are non-physical beings. Well, so there was some scientific research done. And recently there was an extraordinary finding. Rick Strassman, who's the author of DMT, The Spirit Molecule, that's the book that he has published. He and his research group have been diligently looking for DMT within the physical body, and they found in rodents, and this is a stunning discovery, they found in rodents that they are producing the chemical DMT in their pineal gland. So this is just a really amazing discovery, because what it does is it scientifically proves that the third eye, which has been known for millennia to be associated with higher states of consciousness, is actually producing a chemical that induces these altered states of consciousness. So that is really something quite extraordinary.
And that might explain visions and awarenesses that one doesn't get in one's physical eyes sometimes.
Exactly. We're through our third eye, or our Agya chakra, our third eye chakra, we are able to see things hidden from view. We're able to experience miraculous, unusual, higher states of consciousness, and maybe even communicate with beings that are in other dimensions and so on.
So I'd like to try and breeze through all of this, these various ways of awakening your third eye. And just to start with the physical, the risks of light at night and the calcification of the pineal gland are a couple of things we need to worry about from the standpoint of our physical body.
Well, that's true. I mean, there's been a lot of research done on light at night, and on light at night meaning that we're staying up late at night with the lights on rather than going to bed. And why is that important? Well, it's important because of the fact that the third eye, the pineal gland itself, the physical pineal gland, only produces melatonin at night.
Mm-hmm.
It only produces melatonin in the dark, and pinealine also, pinealine is produced in the dark, and the serotonin is produced in the day. So it's important that we have our cycles, our sleep cycles, and that seems to be getting disturbed with people staying up late at night, working odd hours, and not attuned to the natural flow of the rhythms of the sun and the moon and the day and night. So this is of concern, and there's been a lot of research on that. And so it's important that I specifically recommend that people use an eye mask when they sleep at night, so that they get enough melatonin production.
And because of our lifestyle in America, there's also the issue of calcifying, and you address in there the risks of the calcification of the pineal gland, which is the largest deposit of calcium in the body. And you have some food recommendations and some other mineral recommendations that might help decalcify it. But I would like to turn our attention to some of the other spiritual ways of awakening your third eye. Particularly with regard to breath, meditation, and yoga. And let's define yoga first, because yoga is usually thought of as a stretching exercise, and it actually refers to unity, doesn't it?
Right. Well, the word yoga is a Sanskrit word. It doesn't mean exercise. It means union. It means union of the individual spirit with universal spirit. And that comes about through specific ancient practices that are very profound, and some of the practices that specifically help you to awaken your third eye, I do teach in my book, Awaken Your Third Eye. So the practices include asanas, which are yoga postures, including some specific ones such as the shoulder stand and the plow. Those are very good for helping to awaken your third eye. In case you practice yoga, you might know about those. But also other ones are much more powerful for that, such as the bandhas. Bandhas are muscular locks, such as Uddiyana Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha and Mula Bandha. These are very important for awakening Kundalini and awakening your third eye. Also mudras. There's some mudras that are really important for awakening the third eye. These are all yoga practices, by the way, ancient practices. The mudras can be extremely helpful as well. Mudra means actually gestures. It means a specific way of holding certain parts of your body. And also pranayama is very important. Pranayama means breathing exercises. I teach all of this in my book, Awaken Your Third Eye. And then a meditation practice specifically for awakening your third eye is called the Tratak meditation. And Tratak meditation is a kind of gazing meditation, that, for example, gazing at a candle, mirror gazing, where you're sitting in the dark or semi-dark and actually gazing at your own forehead in a mirror with soft, focused vision. Tratak meditation helps you to awaken your soft, focused vision. What do I mean by that? Well, the two eyes, when they're looking at something, are converging on one point. That's how we see things in our external environment. However, we do have two eyes, and those two eyes don't have to necessarily converge on a point. They can kind of relax, and then you sort of see with double vision in a way, because one eye is seeing one image and the other eye is seeing another image. So if you ever use those magic eye pictures, A magic eye picture would be a picture that you gaze at or look at, which has just seemingly, it just looks like a bunch of colored different shapes to it. It doesn't look like anything really, just a bunch of colored shapes. But when you gaze at it with soft focus vision, a three-dimensional object will pop out of that picture, and suddenly you'll see like a three-dimensional looking heart or tree or unicorn or some odd, thing, vision. So that the magic eye pictures will help you to develop your ability to see with soft focus vision, and that is a key for what I call outer clairvoyance, being able to see auras and things hidden from view with your eyes open. Mm-hmm. And most people are more clairvoyant, though, with their eyes closed. They can see more with their eyes closed than with their eyes open. For example, they'll be able to see your aura better with eyes closed than open. Mm-hmm. But there's just dozens and dozens of different practices in the book Awaken Your Third Eye to help you to develop your third eye, to open your third eye.
Yeah, and speaking as a reader who's a big fan, I think this is very clearly written. I'm trying a number of them. I've had this book with me since May, and it actually went to Europe, and I actually in the Vatican looked for the pine cone fountain while I was there. But I'm practicing some of the breathing and some of the yoga postures, and the affirmations are very useful too. But we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I would really like for people to know what's possible if the third eye is fully awakened. And I know that's difficult to summarize in a couple of minutes. You have a wonderful chapter that talks about the garden myth and also Plato's cave, an allegory. But could you tell us in a nutshell, third eye is fully awakened, what's possible in terms of enlightenment?
Well, yes. I mean, the reality is that there is an ultimate truth. There's an ultimate purpose to human life, and there's an ultimate truth that can be realized through awakening your third eye, because that is the place within your subtle body that illumination occurs. So if you do certain yoga practices, and if you begin to experience your true divine nature through some of the meditations that I am proposing in my book, Awaken Your Third Eye, and teaching in this book, you can become fully awake. You can become fully spiritually enlightened. What does that mean? Well, it means that you know who you are, that you have realized your true self, and you have realized what God is, and you have realized that those are one and the same thing, and you realize the unlimited potential that you have because you are a multidimensional divine being filled with grace, filled with light, filled with glory. And so you realize your true self, and that is, that's the most precious thing you could ever know or have or be or learn in this lifetime on this planet. So the third eye is essential to that because it is the part or place within your subtle body where illumination does occur.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. This is a rich resource like your other books that I've become acquainted with. We've been talking with Dr. Susan Shumsky. The book is Awaken Your Third Eye, How Accessing Your Sixth Sense Can Help You Find Knowledge, Illumination, and Intuition. I'm your host, Dr. John Cook. I remind you that if you don't catch us the 4 times we air every week on 88 FM, you can also find us on YouTube at Good Books Radio, Strong and Cook. Thanks for listening.